Good evening. You are watching Speaking Truth to Power on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, streaming live on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe and follow.
Hello, everyone. I am Denise Kiechoff, your host for Speaking Truth to Power, and this is Dr.
Nakpangi
Nakpangi
Thomas.
And we started the show basically so people can watch history as it unfolds. I think we're becoming very progressive. We're moving forward in our country.
Well, we're already progressive. Well, you talk about the nation, not us
the
as
nation.
a show, right?
And I think we're witnessing history. And we started the show because we think, you know what? All the time we don't get to write our history. But if you sit and witness history, you get to tell the truth about it. And today we are actually going to be having Miss Victoria Burton Harris, who happens to be a native of Flint. And some of you might recognize her as the woman who ran against Kim Worthy in Wayne County. But right now, Miss Harris happens to be the chief prosecutor in Washington County. After the election, she actually helped Mr. Savitt set up his office, having no idea that she was going to be called in as his assistant chief prosecutor for Washington County. And I think there's a few things people should know about Ms. Harris. She has actually been written up in The Guardian, Essence, New York Times, The Appeals, and the Detroit News actually did articles, and Democracy, basically because of your forward thinking in the legal system and how it should operate, and the fact that it keeps people of poverty in poverty. All right, Ms. Harris, to you.
Welcome to our show. And that was such a beautiful introduction that you did. But first, Harris, can you please tell our audience a little bit about you? And I know you're a family person as well. So tell our audience a little bit about you and why you became a prosecutor. Why did you get into this profession?
Oh, that's how much time do I have? Because that's a bit of a loaded question. Good afternoon to to both of you and to all of you who are watching. It is my honor and pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. I love both of you ladies, and I am very comfortable around you. So I'm looking forward to a good show. A little bit about me and why I came to be in the role that I am, which I never would have guessed several years ago. Quite frankly, even just a year ago, I would have never guessed that I would be in Washington County working as a chief assistant prosecutor alongside Ellie Savitt. But here I am. My journey starts back, when I was a criminal defense attorney working in Detroit. And I had the pleasure of representing a lot of people on the ground doing the work, fighting against racial and social injustice, represented young people who took to the streets when officers would kill unlawfully. We felt our unarmed Black folks, our children, I've represented young people who have chained themselves to a police department, hoping to bring attention to the kind of injustice that people in uniform were dishing out to folks in the community who looked like us. I've represented people who took to the streets and marched and rallied only to be charged themselves with crimes when all they were doing was trying to bring attention to the crimes that were occurring right before all of our very eyes, simply because of the color of our skin. I have represented activists who were arrested and charged with felonies, simply trying to do the work of the people, get water to folks, get information and resources to folks so that they can live better lives. And I was very content, very happy doing that work. I thought that was what I was called to do. There is a well-known quote from Charles Hamilton Houston, dean of Howard Law School, and once upon a time. And he said that to be in the skin, Black skin, and to be a lawyer, you have one of two options. You can either be a social engineer for justice or you can be a parasite on your community. And I took that to heart when I first heard those words. And I vowed to be that social engineer for justice. And so I see that one of my sisters is on here, Naja Nava. She was one of the very first people, along with her sister and several other folks from various organizations, approached me about 2 years ago and asked if I would consider running for Wayne County prosecutor. And I really just couldn't believe that they were asking me. I'm like, why are you asking me that? Of course, I would never do that. Like, I love what I do. And it takes Naja Nava to really talk about how dismissive I was. And I feel bad looking back because they just saw this vision that I couldn't see at the time.
Hopefully,
And
can call in and tell us a little bit about that. And actually, our phone line is 313-355-6018. If you want to join the conversation, please do so. Our lines are open.
Well, did you think that maybe just the work you were doing, you were already doing the work of the activists. You were already defending these people. And I think maybe living in a city where you're a prosecutor doesn't seem to have that insight was probably the reason they tapped you. Because you
that was exactly why. Yeah, and I didn't realize it. We think of experience, meaning you have experience doing a particular job, a certain way. But we fail to realize that for prosecutors, having the experience on the defense side and being very close to the people who are deeply impacted in this system that go through it as defendants, that experience, is invaluable and nothing compares to that. You can't buy that experience. And that is one of the main reasons why so many local activists and organizers tapped me to run for that seat. But again, I didn't understand that at the time. I did think like, oh no, I've never been a prosecutor. Why would you think I would do well running as a prosecutor? First of all, why do you think I would want to be a prosecutor? I saw prosecutors as parasitic, right? Like they are, traditionally seen as, folks who open up the gates to the criminal legal system and take an arm with a big claw attached to it and reaches out and grabs people of color, grabs folks who've been pushed to the margins, grabs folks who are living in poverty and brings them into a system and puts them on a hamster wheel and never lets them go. Right? Like that's the way that we have traditionally seen prosecutors in this system. Well, reform prosecutors, which is what I like to refer to myself as, either a progressive prosecutor or a reform prosecutor, we see, the criminal legal system differently. First of all, we call it the criminal legal system, not the criminal justice system, because there is no justice in the system. That's a very disingenuous way to describe what's at play here. We have a criminal punishment system or a criminal legal system that it dates all the way back to slavery. And with the way that this system disproportionately targets and impacts people of color, and in particular Black men, I feel strongly that if prosecutors can spend decades being intentional with their power to harm people and to target those people, prosecutors like myself, we can now also be intentional with our power to do good, to shoot those people out of the system, invest in them, give them the resources that they need so that they don't come back here, but more importantly, so that they have the tools they need to not just survive, but to thrive, really. Because that's really what, that's the root cause of why people come into the system, right? Like they are battling with mental health issues or substance abuse issues or behavioral health issues, or they're lacking what they need, like their basic resources in life, right? Housing, stable employment, right? And when people have what they need, like you and I, we're not out going and committing crimes, right? Because a lot of these crimes are like crimes of desperation, right? And we tend to just focus on, the act itself. And that's interesting that we do that, in my opinion, because we immediately think about, as we should, people who are harmed by those acts. but we never look at the person who committed them as once themselves being harmed by an act or a person or a system that failed them, and nothing was done.
So it's
And that hurt person ended up turning around and hurting someone else.
Exactly, because hurt people hurt people. And
Hmm.
go ahead.
no,
Oh,
no, no, we both have something for you,
right. So
right?
it seems like you're saying basically it's a cycle of poverty. We're
Mm-hmm.
prosecuting people for poverty. And it's, from everything I know and from the activism work I've done. And that's truly it. Because if you're homeless, you get in trouble for being in the wrong place at
For
the
being
right
a
time,
vagrant,
for
yeah.
being a vagrant, or for not having your identification, or for looking like you might be ready to rob a place because you went into a restaurant and you don't have any money.
Right, or
So,
sleeping on a park bench.
right. So
So
it, go ahead.
no, I was just completing your sentence.
No, but it does. It sounds like that you're saying that there's been a lot of prosecution based on poverty, and it disproportionately affects people of color.
Mhm. And you
Hmm.
also consider yourself the people's lawyer. And you've done quite a bit of work with families regarding child custody situations. How does that, or what does that look like in the courtroom? Are you seeing more families of color having family issues, or is it just across the board?
So when I was a family law attorney, I would say that I saw a fair amount of folks from all walks of life tangled, in family court, either a divorce or a child custody issue. I will say that I did find in some courtrooms, in some courts, there were times where families of color were treated differently. And what I mean by that is a lack of understanding of the Black lived experience or a lack of empathy if a man was on child support and was behind and did not have, he was not a wage earner on paper for the court to go into his paycheck through a withholding order, an income withholding order to get the child support dollars that were ordered for him to pay. Well, not understanding that oftentimes people living in poverty are, working under the table and they're not going to be a traditional wage earner. And the fear that they have of even trying to explain that and report it because it is illegal and has been deemed criminal. And so therefore they don't. The court system, the front of the court, they didn't really understand that. They were not very friendly to folks living in those circumstances. So I did see some disparate treatment and disparate impact there.
And
But
just to piggyback what you were saying, I've also was a foster care worker and noticed that when I had single mothers specifically that were doing hair from their home, either braiding hair or just doing hair, had a license but worked from out of their home, that a lot of judges or referees didn't consider that as
Income.
legal income, and they would use that as a tool to keep the children in the foster care system, basically separated from family. So I definitely understand how there's that disparity those systems, especially when it comes to our children. So just wanted to add that to what you were saying.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Hmm.
I'm for-
Yeah. Oh, so you are watching in Speaking Truth to Power on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, streaming live on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and follow. And if you want to join the conversation, please call us at 313-355-6018.
Oh, and we're going to take a break just for a public service announcement. As we battle the COVID-19 pandemic, it's clear That misinformation can be just as deadly as the awful virus and spread just as quickly. Myths are spreading on the internet and social media. It's so important to know the facts to keep our community healthy. The vaccines are offered through Wayne County Public Health and scientifically proven to be safe. It's important that each of us gets vaccinated and schedules vaccinations as soon as possible.
All right.
And I
That's
just
right.
to ask you now, with this new thing, it's the pandemic, since I made that public health announcement, now you sort of see when you do unemployment, you talk about the gig economy, which is basically sort of literally under the table economy. Either you file your taxes or you don't. Now, do you see with states all across the country now recognizing that there's a gig economy, do you see a change in, let's just say, family court? Do you see a change that, you know what, you can now walk in and say, you know what, I'm part of the gig economy, but I didn't make enough to file taxes? Do you think that's going to make a change when you go before a family judge? Because when I sort of noticed that happening, I became very curious about that. Because for the longest, like you say, being a social worker too, you see people who work, but they can't prove to you that they work or they have this money coming in. So, do you see the courts taking into consideration now that the federal government has recognized that there's a gig economy that we've all known about our entire lives, but now it's official? Do you see a different response coming from courts when people say they're part of the gig economy?
Or is there slow movement on that?
Well, I am no longer a family law attorney, so I can't say, since January 1st of this year, what the family law courts have been doing differently. But I do see a shift in people being more flexible and understanding throughout this pandemic last year through the family law courts. And it is my sincere hope that with pushes out of DC and Lansing here at home, that we will start to see that flexibility and understanding and empathy expand because I think it's becoming, like you said, crystal clear to folks that didn't know what we've known for a long, long time. That look, people are they're not going to just lay down and give up and die when they're living in poverty. They're going to make a way out of no way, right? And we know our ancestors have always made a way out of no way. And people are going to be innovative. People are going to, string things together to make sure that they can feed themselves and their children, their babies. And it is my hope that our government will start to see that and recognize that in the courtroom and, really give those wage earners a fair shot.
Mhm. I want to switch the topic a little bit and actually go back to the COVID announcement. How it states in here how it's scientifically safe and all that. What there's some people that once they take the vaccine, they get ill. Some people have allergic reactions to it. And one of the our viewers wanted to know if you take the vaccine and you immediately have an allergic reaction to where you have to be hospitalized, had a heart attack, can you sue for that, or is there any ramifications from that happening?
That's a good question. And I don't know if there have been any lawsuits or if folks can sue for that. I had both doses of Pfizer, and there was paperwork that you signed. I cannot recall if I signed a waiver saying that I was not. I don't think that I did. Um, but
I think
you
that's
know,
automatic now, isn't it? Automatic when you take the vaccine, that is implied or somewhere in there that there's that waiver that you can't sue.
that wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me whatsoever. I don't recall specifically. I was not, well, first of all, the first day I went, I was frazzled because I was about 30, 40 minutes late. I was circling the big house in Ann Arbor, trying to find the right entry point to get in to get the shot. And I was calling Ellie. I'm like, where is it? And he was like, Vic, read your email. And I was like, okay, I read it. Still don't know. called the phone number on the email. And they were like, ma'am, can you read your email? And I'm like, gee, thanks. So I read the email again and I was like, okay, I still don't know. So Ellie gets his shot. We were like 5 minutes apart in our appointments. He gets his shot and then he calls me and he was like, hey, have you found it? I was like, no, I'm still driving around. So Ellie is hard to miss. He's a big tall guy, right? And he goes out onto the main road and tells me, like, drive around here. And when I did drive around there, I saw him waving and he brought me into the parking lot. So I was real frazzled. I can't tell you what exactly was on the paper I signed. I tried to be as thorough as possible just to give it a look over, a glance. So, I am an attorney, should just be signing things. But I'll be honest, I didn't read very thoroughly. I was like, I just got to get in here to get my shot. So I don't know. And then the second time when I went back, I was a little fearful because I had been told from so many people that the second shot brings on like the major symptoms. I expected to be, flu-like symptoms, a little fever, chills, body aches, all of that good jazz. And so I think I was a little nervous, but I didn't have any of that. A lot of folks who had Moderna had more side effects than the folks that took Pfizer, in my opinion, that I'm aware of. And I had Pfizer. And I was just tired. I was just tired and kind of like out of it for about 24 hours. But other than that, it was fine.
Yeah, I know someone that took the vaccine a few days ago, and right after they took it, their arms swelled up really big and
Mm,
had heart palpitations, the sweats, and they had to admit her into the hospital because, like I said, she was had a mild heart attack from
mm,
the vaccine. So she didn't get released until like 3 o'clock that morning, and even
mm,
the rest of the day she was very just out of it. So I'm just
mm.
what are the ramifications, especially when it happens so instantaneously.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm curious to see.
I took the Pfizer too. I didn't
She
read
took
it
the
either.
Pfizer too.
Yeah, so did I. I know my daughter, my youngest daughter, Jade, her arm swelled up really bad. And I thought she was sort of faking because she's a little dramatic. She's 18. She's doing MSU from the bedroom. Yay, go MSU. But, and I'm just
Oh, go blue. I gotta throw that in there now. I love the baby. I'm glad the baby is in school, but go blue.
right. So, and then when she showed me, and her dad said something, he's like, "I think you should really look at her arm." I'm like, "Okay, I'll look at it." I'm like, "Ooh, yeah. Let's put some ice on that." And the
Hmm.
one time she's not, being Donna
Dramatic,
drama,
right?
her arm was actually swollen, so she did feel a little out of sorts. Sort of the same thing that sweats and stuff.
Hmm.
I read the information and said that would probably happen.
Hmm.
As long as she was, could sleep and get up. And, she just tried to milk it like, Dad, can you go get me a pizza? And I'm like, really? Yeah, pizza
That
place.
was
I was
my husband. He took Moderna.
Right.
And I did not. I was on a panel with one of his colleagues like the following week after he took his second shot of Moderna. And she was describing her reaction that she had the shakes and chills and fever and body ache and really bad headache. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah, Rob didn't. And I was like, girl, actually he did, but I thought he was putting on. So I was like, stop all that. Ain't nobody got time for that. Get up.
I
He was,
said,
you know how men are when they get sick. He hit me with a bay. I'm dying. I'm dying. I'm like, please get up. You're fine. So I felt bad. I'm like, oh no, you really were like having serious side effects. He was like, I tried to tell you.
right. I said the same thing to my daughter. And I'm like, and don't you have a test today? And she looked at me. She's like, yes. I'm like, then shouldn't you take it? She's like, okay. But but I'm really proud of her. She's going to have a 4.1. And I'm like, so I guess we
Oh,
make
that's
it.
amazing.
mom is like a just with the
Well, I'm sort of like you, Victoria. It's like, seriously, because I didn't have any sign. I'm like, we took the same shot.
but it affects everyone
Yeah.
It
differently.
does. It does.
Being in the
I
same family, having the same genes, she still has
yeah,
her
she's
own
special.
system and everything. So it's going to respond
Special.
differently, and the side effects are going to be different. So
That's
we know some people that have allergies, it's going to be a little more hectic on their body just because they have allergies. And for healthier people like yourself, it's not going to impact you
well, me and Victoria are just strong
as
women. We got it
much.
going on. Well,
That's
we just keep
right.
it woman. Things to do, and we have to get them done. So I don't have time to. But Victoria, there is one thing I'd like to talk to you about. I do want to talk to you about the Coalition of Police Transparency and Accountability.
Yes.
I am very interested. So you're on that board. Can you talk to us about that? Explain that to our listeners what that is?
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah. So the Coalition for Police Transparency and Accountability, it formed shortly after the murder of Hakeem Littleton. Hakeem Littleton was murdered by the Detroit police off of 6 Mile in Detroit this past year. And it was recently ruled that the killing was lawful, that the killing was in self defense, and that no charges would be formally brought against the Detroit Police Department or the officers who were involved. And there were a lot of us in Detroit at the time who, just did not see that the way that the majority of folks saw it. You know, we one were able to get a hold of undoctored footage because it was determined that some of the footage that was initially released after Hakeem was murdered had been doctored, despite the fact that the claim it was undoctored was plastered all over the media. It was not true.
So,
And
do you know that who doctored the footage? Because only one entity had access to that, and that was the Detroit Police Department, correct?
I can't tell you who doctored it or who uh, did what with it. But I can tell you that more videos started to surface that we were able to slow down and be able to piece the seconds of Hakeem's life, the last few seconds of his life together. And we were able to see that he had been subdued and was down on the ground prior to the Detroit police officer firing into him and taking his life. So the claim that they had to shoot to kill him in order to have life preserved on their end, we disagreed with that. And we wanted more transparency. We wanted more accountability from law enforcement. And that group was formed in Detroit. The group was formed under several grassroots sheroes and heroes, Jeffrey Lee Edison, Maman Shombe. We had Shay Howell.
Was Tafari Brent part of that as well?
Tafari is not a member of this particular coalition, but he is in so many other organizations and is doing the same kind of work right alongside other groups. And so there were several folks who were a part of that commitment to get law enforcement to be more transparent and accountable.
Now let me ask this because there is a police commission.
Hmm.
What's their role? Aren't they supposed to be doing this transparency and accountability?
The Detroit, the Detroit Police Commission, is supposed to oversee and do exactly as you just indicated,
So
provide a sense of accountability. And I'm sorry.
why the hell do we have them as a commission if we have to have an outside source to come in to do their job?
Well, uh,
Listen,
that that's a question for the police commission. There are some excellent police commissioners, and they struggle with some of the others that don't see things the way that they do. And I know that the citizens, I've gone to a lot of those meetings, and there are many citizens who attend every single one in an attempt to hold that body accountable and force them to hold DPD accountable. But just like every governing body and board, not all of them see things the same or agree. And so it presents some inherent challenges, if you will.
yeah, because I just really think this is ridiculous to have a whole separate group of people doing something that we are literally paying because
Right.
they receive a stipend for their role that they're performing. And if they're not doing it, then we need to get them out of there.
Now, I sort of have a question that's twofold. So with your transparency organization, what did you guys accomplish? And does the Detroit Police Commission also have a citizen review board?
So, with the Coalition for Police Transparency and Accountability, we held a tribunal for Hakeem Littleton, wanting to showcase who he was and what his life represented, which was vastly different from what was being plastered all over the news and the media. We wanted to give his family an opportunity and his village to provide testimony as to who he was and what he may have been thinking moments leading up to his murder. We heard expert testimony from folks like Mark Fancher with the ACLU, attorney Jeffrey Lee Edison, who is a stalwart in Detroit, as it relates to Black history and the history of African people. Um, and I think that that was very cathartic for a lot of folks in the community and certainly for folks in Mr. Littleton's family. Shortly after we had the tribunal for Hakeem Littleton, we had a public hearing on police brutality and violence, and testimony was presented over several hours before some of our local officials, our Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, City Council President Pro Tem Mary Sheffield, City Councilwoman Raquel Castaneda Lopez. And then we also had State Senator Stephanie Chain present to hear that testimony. And it was recorded and preserved so that as things move forward in DC, that testimony can later be shared. When Congress decides to hold more hearings on this very issue, which it looks like we might be moving in that direction. Um, yeah, it looks like it. We're seeing some things in the Senate with the Republicans holding up the George Floyd bill, but I remain hopeful. So those are some of the things that the coalition has accomplished, and the coalition is still meeting. It meets every Tuesday. I have not been as active as I was prior to taking my current role here in Washtenaw County, but I'm still plugged in. I can see the minutes and can see the good work that they're planning on, and it looks like they're planning a second convening with some of our local officials, at like a part two of the public hearing.
Now, do you sort of see this transparency board that you set up? Do you sort of see this maybe being something that might actually get to the federal level? Because it sounds like it's something that would be needed in every community. And I know, we all think, well, not in our community, but you know what? Eventually, that
Well, it's a coalition of community members. It's not a board that anyone answers to. Anyone can join the coalition, and our hope is to take what's happening in Detroit on a national level as it relates to police brutality and police violence and the need for accountability and transparency, which is why that first hearing where we had our, our, our our Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib present to take back to DC what she had learned and what was happening in her own hometown. The pain that people were suffering at the hands of those who were to be protecting and serving them.
No, I think you are dead on that. Did you have something to read? Okay, now this is the big question. How did you make the jump from running against Kim Worthy in Wayne County to Washington County? I mean, because
So
Yes,
this
how
is
did
a
we
part of
Wayne County?
even when we were talking to Prosecutor Savitt, some of the messages we got later were people love him, but they're very angry that you're not here. So
Yes. Look, I see that.
Okay, y'all don't be angry with Ellie. Ellie is
No,
like,
that
he's good
kid.
people. He's like the best of the best of the
like,
best. Don't be angry.
of people going, well, she's our Eli. What do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know what to tell you there, but you can't have her. But no, just
We're gonna get her back. I
oh,
don't know how we're gonna get you back.
sure Chief Assistant Prosecutor will tell you kidnapping's illegal.
I'm not.
Well,
I'm just saying we'll get you back some type of way.
Explain that story, because we do have a lot of people from Detroit tuning in, and they're like, "What? You're where? What are you doing? Why is she there?" So we can sort of see it. So we have a lot of people sort of yelling at us. So I think you need to explain that.
I will explain myself. Happily explain myself.
You.
This is a this is a bit about I call this me and Ellie's love story in a very platonic way.
We understand.
Um,
We understand.
yeah, he's my brother from another mother. We are very, very close. We've gotten to be very close. And we ran on almost identical platforms.
Yes, you did.
Um,
I did notice that when you were running,
mhm,
and
mhm.
I think what a lot of people don't know about you is that her and Ellie both were supported by Bernie Sanders.
We
Yes.
I mean,
were.
it's
Yes.
We
like,
were both endorsed by Bernie Sanders, by John Legend.
yes,
Yeah, we had a lot of the same folks
that
supporting us. Working Families Party. The Working Families Party got behind a lot of different progressive reformists running for DA and prosecutor across the country. And so, we became friends throughout or during our campaigns, and we kept in touch, would check in with each other, see how things were going for the other one. And after the primary, he called me and he said, you ran a hell of a race. We were watching, we were rooting for you that night because that night it looked like, oh my God, we're going to pull this off. And then the
I
next
watched that.
morning, it was like the Donald Trump effect. And it was like, oh my God, oh my God. So, I slept for several days after that. And folks are calling my husband, like, is she okay? He's like, yeah, she's fine. She's just sleeping. I think all of us are like super depressed, but she's fine. She's like, okay, let me just get some sleep. And then I went back to work. And I was like, I was picking cases back up. And I loved what I was doing. Like I told you, I told Najanava no. And like my no, when she asked me to run, because they kept coming and they would send like different people after I would say no, it turned into like a hell no. Like, stop asking me. So
You told them no
No,
several
several
times.
times. Right.
I did. I did. I'm stubborn. I'm like, no, I know what I want, and that's not what I want. Because at the
Yeah, but that was
time,
God's plan
I
for
did.
you.
Yeah, look, and when God says go, you just go, even
That's
if you are like pushing and having to get dragged to where He's telling you to go. You gonna still go. And I didn't at the time understand what a progressive prosecutor was. I didn't understand that we could do things differently in this system until folks started saying, just stop saying no, Victoria, listen to us. Look at folks like Larry Krasner, who ended up endorsing me the week before the election. He was like the first of us in Philadelphia, and who's running for reelection right now. He really started this progressive prosecutor DA movement. And it's really just snowballed from there. And so, fast forward to the primary, right? I'm not successful. I sleep for days. Ellie calls me. And when he called, he asked me if I would consider joining his advisory team to advise him as he transitioned into office. And I said, yes, it's an honor, that you would ask. And he was like, yes, I really want you to do that, given the race that you ran and what your values are, which your values align with mine, and some of the ideas that you had. I'd like to have you advise me. I said, great, fine. I was happy to do that. And then that blossomed into another opportunity. And he said, you wouldn't be interested in, helping me run my office as my number two. And I was like, well, I'm not uninterested. And he didn't think that I would want to. There was this idea that because I ran to be a number one, that I thought the number two was like beneath me or something, or I just wouldn't want to do it. And I'm like, Ellie, I wanted the change. The more I, ran and got into that campaign, the more I heard the stories of how folks had their lives upended and, negatively impacted, both as crime survivors and victims and defendants, people who have been trapped in the system, and the families of both, right? Defendants and victims. And those stories, each one of them, it was like I was taking a pebble from someone and putting it into a little purse, and I was keeping all of those pebbles, and they were adding to my why. And I carried that with me. And at the end of the day, I just wanted to do the work. I wanted to put the policies into place that I knew would help people, that would trickle down and play out on the ground level in the courtroom. Because I was a courtroom lawyer, I knew what needed to happen on a day-to-day, everyday level. And that was what I cared about most. I cared about the work. I cared about people being given a second chance. I cared about people not being wrongfully prosecuted and convicted and wrongfully imprisoned for things that they didn't do. I cared about true justice for crime victims through restorative justice. I cared about, people not being attacked and overcharged. I cared about prosecutorial misconduct being eliminated. I cared about creating more diversion programs, and in particular, diversion programs that wouldn't require you to plead guilty before you can get a dismissal, because we know that there are collateral consequences of a guilty plea, like you lose your job, possibly, can't
Yeah.
live in certain places, possibly, right? And so Ellie had the same values. Yeah. And I, so I told him, and I thought a long time about it. And I felt bad, like, I didn't initially want to leave Detroit. I said Detroit, even though I'm born and raised in Flint, and Flint made me. Detroit really elevated me to where I was at the time. And I felt a connection to Detroit that was strong and unique. And I didn't want to leave the people there. And someone said to me, well, what is it about Detroit and Wayne County that you're so stuck on if you're not even from Detroit or Wayne County? Like, well, how are you just so close to these people? And I said, you just said it, it's the people. And then they responded, the people are everywhere. People are suffering everywhere. People are living, under this very parasitic criminal legal system everywhere, and people need help everywhere. Go and help people where you can. And so I said, okay. And so, I had learned a valuable lesson in saying no to Naja Nava and so many others. And I told myself, don't say no. This could be something beautiful. You could very well be helping people that need you, that look like you, that just happen to not live in Detroit. Don't pass this opportunity up. And I didn't. You know, I asked Ellie for 24 hours after he officially offered the position to me. And then we call that the moment that he popped the question and put the ring on it when he officially extended the offer. And I was like, I tried to play all cute. And I was like, I need some time. And then I called him right back.
You're trying to play hard to get, knowing you was
I
like,
tried to play hard to get. I tried. And I called back and said yes, 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 yes. And the rest is history. We've been, rolling together. And I'll tell you something about Ellie. I'm going to roll with him until the wheels fall off, because he, as my mother said, Ellie is the real deal. He really is. He gets it. And I wouldn't, quite frankly, want to do this kind of work in this moment without him as my partner.
But you are too. You are the real deal. You have so much passion and commitment. That's why the people of Wayne County love you, and I know Washtenaw loves you as well. Um, but let me go ahead and do this really quick. You are watching Speaking Truth to Power on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, streaming live on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, and comment.
And a quick PSA,
Just
as
quick.
we battle the COVID-19 pandemic, it's clear that misinformation can be just as deadly as the awful virus and spread just as quickly. Myths are spreading on the internet and social media, so it's important to know the facts to keep your community healthy. The vaccines offered through Wayne County Public Health are scientifically proven to be safe. It is important that each of us gets vaccines scheduled as soon as you are physically able. And thank you, everyone. And what I have to say is, Victoria, you know what? Ellie was always going to be great at this job. And it was really a three-way battle in Washtenaw County. And it was literally a battle for the soul of Washtenaw County. And Eli won. And in
Mhm.
order to be there, he knew that, you know what? He had to make sure that he kept every promise. But every
Mhm.
promise he made was not just a promise, it was a belief. It is
Mhm.
the way he actually handles things. And for him to bring you on, and that was what was so interesting is we all in Washtenaw County watched the race, and we just kept thinking, wow, she could be our prosecutor because somebody comment because I was at an event with Eli, and somebody made the comment said, "You're lucky she's not living here running against you." And he's like, "Yeah, I know." He's like, "Yeah, I
he,
know."
he would have been in trouble,
Right?
right?
Because people would have been like, can we have two prosecutors?"
Yeah.
But
Well, now you do have two of us.
Yeah.
and what I need for people to understand, there are a lot of people in the community who did not think that maybe we should give this position to Ellie because it was like they wanted to see someone who reflected them. They did not think that the things he said that he would do because they were just, how can I say, lofty. And,
Mm.
but deep down inside, you knew what he was talking about, especially the restorative justice was justice coming to full circle is what it was. So when he ran on that, I knew I was one of the people like, yeah, you're gonna win. I'm every day, you're gonna win. I'm texting, you're gonna win. So I was one of those people. I had no doubt.
One of those annoying people, most likely.
Right, no, fundraising and everything, handing out flyers because it's time for a change. Things had to change because
Absolutely.
we see what happens when they don't. There are two, I mean, George Floyd wasn't the first, and unfortunately, he won't be the last.
Well, we
But
already know he
Mhm.
won't be the last. We've already had several
right,
cases after that.
and when you came aboard, it was like Washtenaw County just breathed a sigh of relief. We're like, we are really going to do this. This is really going to be done. And I'm out in the community, social distancing, working with a lot of groups who said, we're not supporting him in the beginning. We supported someone else, which is everyone's right to do because they thought someone else would do the job. But now they're saying, we are so glad that he's actually in that office. And we're so glad Victoria's there. Everybody's just really amazed because one of the latest things they're talking about is, the expungement and moving forward with looking into anti-human trafficking. If you want to talk to us about that.
Yes, please do talk about human trafficking. Always want to talk about that.
And the
Yeah.
that you guys have set up before the announcement on April 12th. You guys were already moving forward on that. So everybody, and we all read about that, and we were just like, wow, you're doing these things before everybody else.
We're going to start calling you the Wonder Twins.
Right. That's great. Wow, right.
That's cute. That's fine. We'll take it. We call each other partners in justice. We used to say partners in crime, and people were like, "Y'all gotta stop saying that. Y'all prosecutors. That's
Yeah.
not what's going on right now." So, yeah, we refer to each other as partners in crime. And if you guys want to call us the Wonder Twins, I'm not gonna fight you on it. That's fine. But as it relates to victims of human trafficking, we actually are in the process. We just had a grant application deadline pushed back. We thought we were going to be applying for this past Friday, but it's been extended, and so we will be applying for a grant in working with several different community partners in Washtenaw County, the Human Trafficking Clinic over at the University of Michigan, and also the Eisenhower Center. Um, I believe it's also Home of New Vision, and several other different community partners that we're working with to provide much needed resources. Resources like medical treatment, drug treatment, housing, What is it that, survivors of human trafficking need to, one, come out and to stay out, and to really thrive. And we know the last thing they need is to be criminalized. And we have pledged that, if someone reports human trafficking to our office, or to a partner, and then we learn of it, we certainly are not going to go out and charge a person who's been a victim of human trafficking. And as it relates to expungement, we did recently stand up a conviction, integrity, and expungement unit ran by a phenomenal woman named Frances Walters. And we were able to steal her. You talk about stealing people. Like, we've been stealing folks from all kind of jurisdictions. Ellie stole me, and then he reached back and stole a woman that he went to law school with, who was the executive director of the Mid-Atlantic Innocence Project. And she was doing her thing for a decade, freeing innocent folks who should have never been arrested, prosecuted, and convicted, and bringing them home. And so we said, you're getting ready to come here, you're going to do that here. And she's actually from Ann Arbor. So, Ellie, he can identify good women, right? And he has surrounded himself with good women. We stole someone from Wayne County to run our, I'm sorry?
Go ahead. No,
you all gonna stop stealing our good Wayne County folk.
We stole an amazing, she's so bad, let me tell you. We stole Christina Hyde. She's so amazing.
I know. It's like I say, people are starting to talk. I mean, and you would think when they're talking about the prosecutor's office, people would be complaining. We have just the opposite. People are happy. People will walk into the office, people will call, and they will stop you guys on the street. And it's not to yell at you.
They do. They're like, oh my God, you're Ellie and you're Victoria. And we're like, yeah, who are you? Like, it's okay. Like, did we do something? And they're like, no. I'm like, oh, okay, we can breathe. I just want to make sure that we aren't in trouble for something.
The sad thing is, we do not have enough time to get into everything, but I do want to make you this offer, and I made this offer to Eli. We would like to have you back. We have, I think we're having some issues with our phone, but we have so many people that have a lot of things they want to ask you, a lot of things, and we don't want to leave. We don't have anybody out. We don't want to leave anybody out, and we want people to have a chance. We want to be able to get these questions to you, and especially the people in Wayne County who, I think they might have different questions for you, but we're really interested on moving forward on the human trafficking and the expungement. And excuse me, and actually where you see the office 2 years from now, where you actually see that office. So I'll ask you what I asked Eli. Will you promise to come back when we ask? Maybe with the Wonder Twins.
Yes. And we're going to maybe get you some shirts made with Wonder Twins on it or something.
Yeah. Okay. I promise to come back. Yes.
So I just put my foot in my mouth. So now I guess I'm going to have to get 2 shirts.
Yep. Now you got look, and our shirt queen is Trisha Duckworth. She's amazing. She held us both down in both of our respective counties during our races, and she continues to not only support us but hold us accountable. She will call us and say, I need you to explain to me what this policy really means. I need you to explain to me how this policy is going to play out and how it's not going to hurt our people on the ground. And I love that so much about her, because I was all about prosecutor accountability. And yeah, she keeps us in line, and she's also our shirt queen. She's always, whenever we come out to support her, she's like, oh, prosecutor, chief assistant, I got shirts for you. I'm like, oh, you're amazing. So yeah, now you got to join the club and get us shirts because you said it.
That's what's great about that. How many people can actually call up their prosecutor and you actually get a response? Because they don't talk to just people they know. They're like, they'll walk by, well, you got this phone call from somebody, and they will call them back. And for people to think that Wayne County is Washington County is small, we are not. We are not a small county by any means, and they represent all of Washington County, which includes Saline, Dexter, Chester.
Just walking around the streets.
We don't. No, we don't. And Victoria knows it is. I mean, when you look at it, you're just like, wow, Washington County is actually big. because there are people who don't know Chelsea is part of Washtenaw. They don't know how far out we really stop at Monroe. I mean, there's like Milan and then there's Monroe. They bud each other. That's how large we are. So you guys cover, you cover all of that, and people from all different parts of the county reach out. And the great thing, what I've heard from people and what I've seen online, and people they actually call you back.
Yes, we do. We work for you. I mean, let me tell you something. This is going to be the last thing I say. It might be a little feisty, but I believe it to my core. None of us have ever applied for a job and said in an interview all of the right things to get the job. And then once we got the job, said, oh no, I'm not doing none of that. I'm not going to do what you need me to do. I'm not going to do what you asked me to do. I mean, who does that? So this idea that we've just accepted for so long, our elected officials and our public officials will take office and just not respond to us, not do what the people collectively have said that they need and what they want, that is asinine to me. And I will never, ever, understand how we keep those folks in office. And if Ellie and I become folks who just start charting our own path and course and doing whatever we want to do and ignoring the people, I would totally understand if folks said, oh no, we got to get y'all out of office. But that would never happen. We love what we do. We love the people in the community that we serve. And, we believe in being transparent. All of our policies, speaking of transparency, all of our policies are on our website for anyone to go on and to read what it is that we've been doing and why. Like there are several pages of, factual information, including statistics that, start each of our policies. So,
I'm sorry that we have to actually wrap this up.
But you're coming back. And
I'll
ladies,
be back.
thank you for tuning in, Speaking Truth to Power. I'm Denise Kiechoff.
And I'm Dr. Nakpangi Thomas.
And thank you, Prosecutor Harris. We look forward to bringing you back. And people, we will see you next Sunday on Mother's Day, Speaking Truth to Power. Thank you, Ms. Harris. We appreciate it very much.
Bye-bye.